Hello, everyone. You are listening to the DMZ America podcast for Thursday, May 9th, 2024. You might also be watching, so we don't want to rule that out. I'm Ted Rall, editorial cartoonist, coming to you from the left.
And I'm editorial cartoonist Scott Stantis, coming to you from the right. And I've turned my camera around, which has caused all sorts of confusion.
Brain
Because
of cartoonist, very small. That is why I have difficulty understanding. Very strange.
For those of you who may not know, I love flags, and so I have them in my office. And so now I'm looking like I'm addressing the nation, my fellow Americans.
Indeed. Indeed. It is kind of a travesty if you ever shed this mortal coil without having held elected office, even if it's just like school board or something with like even less important like president. That would be
Something that has no impact.
exactly.
I would love, what job I would love? I've wanted this since I was a kid. I'm not kidding. Can you guess which elective office I would love to have?
Can you tell me if it's state or federal or local?
Well, if I say federal, which it is, you'll guess it immediately.
Governor. Oh no, sorry. Federal.
John Marshall is my hero.
Vice president.
There it is.
Nothing to do.
What a great job. Well, and especially, with Harry Truman, all he did is he loved the Senate. He was a senator before he was elected vice president. So he maintained an office there. He had the whiskey, get-togethers on Thursday nights. You just kind of hang around and don't do anything and hope that the president doesn't die.
Wasn't Truman kind of miserable though?
Oh yeah, no, it's terrible because you don't have any real authority. They had a Senate majority, the Democrats did, so he really didn't have to break any, tied votes or anything. The war was still raging, so there wasn't a lot of dissent. Was it Nance Garner, who was two-time vice president under FDR, said it's not worth a bucket of shit.
Yeah.
He said, it's like a bucket of shit is what he said, but they never reported it that way. So it was like a big bucket of spit,
which is something no one would ever say.
Right. Which, it still works, but that's not what he said. He hated Garner was like 5,000 years old. He was like Biden's age when he was vice president. He was the only guy in the country who was in worse physical shape than FDR.
Wow, that's saying a lot, actually.
Yeah, he actually retired after 2 terms. He said, "Okay, I'm done being vice president. I'm going to go back to, I think, Texas and die." And that's when Henry Wallace, was vice president for a term.
Very problematic vice president for FDR, right? They were not simpatico in terms of personality or ideology or anything, right?
No, well, Wallace actually got into his head that somehow the New Dealers actually meant what they were saying. FDR is like, "Oh no, we're not like that." He was. Let's face it, that was the most progressive administration probably in our history.
Oh yeah, well, or Theodore Roosevelt, maybe.
Teddy was, but people forget that Taft was even more progressive. And one of the things that pissed off Roosevelt was, well, besides Taft not being, Teddy Roosevelt, was that Taft went after many of Theodore Roosevelt's rich buddies, and to break up the trust. He was much more aggressive about breaking up trusts than Teddy Roosevelt was.
Which is a very, very funny, detail of history. So I guess we have to talk about the I think the biggest foreign policy shift in recent American history, I would say. So obviously the war in Gaza continues. We're now in its 7th month as of 2 days ago, and and most of Gaza has been completely flattened. Its famine has officially been designated to be well underway in northern Gaza, and the way that's defined is that people are literally dying en masse every single day due to lack of food and water. Now famine appears to be imminent in southern Gaza because the Israelis have seized control of the border crossing into Egypt and cut off all flow. That was one of the few places where there were still some trucks that the Israelis were allowing in food and water and other supplies. That's completely cut off. And interestingly, people don't talk about the food side the fuel side of this. But without fuel, for example, you can't pump well water. You can't operate a hospital. So fuel is super important for nutrition. You can't cook food in a lot of places if you don't have electricity. So you can't just camp with a fire. There's no gas lines in Gaza. So it's like, obviously, there's a lot of repercussions. Anyway, so the current situation is that Biden, finally, he's been telling Bibi Netanyahu, do not go into Rafah. We've told you, we don't want you to, don't do it, don't do it, don't do it. Bibi's like, I don't care what you think, I'm going into Rafah. And so they started going into Rafah. They took control of the border crossing. I get the reading between the lines. I think that displeased Biden. They started a limited operation and kicked out about 100,000 people out into a tent city, into the rubble of where the city of Khan Yunis used to stand. And there's been all sorts of mayhem and chaos there. But there's still a better part of 1.5 million people taking shelter in Rafah. And the Israelis say, we're going in. And I mean, from their point of view, they're like, well, what's the point of doing this unless you're going to finish it completely? The whole point of the war was to clean it all up and kill everyone in Hamas. And then from the American point of view, this is going to be a bloodbath. You've destroyed all of Gaza. These people have no place to go. It's going to be a pig shoot. So you're not allowed to do that. So anyway, Biden paused, did not cancel the shipment of 3,500 bombs, including 2,000-pound bunker busters that were being shipped. These are all 2,500-pound bombs that were canceled. I was just thinking, Scott, and I tweeted about this earlier today, that this one shipment, which is just one of scores of shipments, right? And it's just being paused. It hasn't been canceled, but this is still a radical change in policy. And I want to talk about that radical change in policy. But just as a parenthetical, if 35 2,000-pound bombs fell on Manhattan, it would be absolutely devastating. If 350 fell on Manhattan, it would be a tragedy of epic proportions that would take a long time.
You need to get that?
No, it's all right. A long time. That's Biden calling. A long time to recover from. And then, and if 3,500 bombs were to fall on Manhattan, the city might never recover. And that's one shipment of arms that's being paused. Now, Gaza is about the size of Manhattan. That's why it's a good comparison. The pre-war population and the geography and the density are comparable. And so it's like, I just think that's one shipment, and they've already done so many. So anyway, the point is, obviously the supporters of Israel are very upset about this. They say that this is going to prevent the Israelis from closing the deal and defeating Hamas once and for all.
That's not right.
And so, I mean, obviously, what I think this is about is really very straightforward. I think this is Biden saying, look, we and the United States have been stalwart allies. We have supported you through thick or thin. We've run interference for you at the UN. We have always been there for you. We supply you with intel, weapons. We love you and we support you. But that you can't that doesn't mean you have a blank check to use our shit to do whatever you want. You have to consult with us. You have to take our opinion into account. You don't always have to do everything we say, but you have to take us seriously and treat us respectfully. Right. We don't feel that you've been doing that. What do you think?
Well, there's more to this story, Ted, and this is why I think this is such weak tea. I posted this to Center Clip, which if you and the listening public out there have not subscribed to, you need to, because it's very good. But my takeaway from this action is that it's virtually meaningless, because you and I both know that the way, especially Western governments and advanced governments prepare for wars, they stockpile. Israel has been buying arms for decades, and they stockpile them. That's what you do, just in case you need to drop them on people. Um, Having one shipment paused is really uh, Biden's trying to have it both ways. He's looking at what's happening on college campuses and looking at what's happening to his standing among young voters. My take on that is fuck the young voters. They don't vote anyway. So you really can just proceed apace and not worry about what they think or do, because,
Although they
they're
did
going
in
to,
2020.
they did, but not to, still the percentage of eligible young voters that do not vote is astounding. It's somewhere in the neighborhood of 70 percentile. I mean, it's just crazy how many of them do not vote. Okay, he wants to placate that wing of the party by doing one action out of innumerable, and is don't feel sorry, don't cry for me, oh Israel, because they have plenty of bombs in their arsenal to continue to drop them. They may have diminished or depleted them somewhat, but you know, this is one of those. I'm trying to do two things at once. Joe Biden, and we all know his cognitive abilities these days, and
You can't even do one.
multitasking, not what he can do well. So, from my perspective, this is one of those weak ass political motivated, and we shouldn't be surprised. I mean, I hate it when people say, "Oh, the president's just being political." It's a political office. That, don't be surprised
Yeah,
that
well, that's what he's supposed to be doing. Yeah.
the highest political office in our country is, and the guy who's in it is acting playing politics. I never understood that complaint against Bill Clinton all the time, especially from the Rush Limbaugh types. He's just playing politics. And this is, yeah, that's his job. That's his job description. That's exactly, it would be like that Ted Rall is just drawing pictures.
It's like
Well,
guilty as charged. Yeah.
that's his job. Okay, so past that, you tell me if you think I'm wrong. I think this is obviously a political act aimed at quieting the dissent on the far left of the party, the protests that are going on in university campuses. I think it's meaningless in the long run, especially that it's just a pause. But to your point, the optics of it are what's important here, and that's partially what drives foreign policy.
Mm.
And the optics that we're arguing, it's when you go out with a couple and there's probably been some troubles behind closed doors, but you go out you go out to dinner with them and they're just mean to each other.
Yeah.
That's what this is. This is a marriage that is coming unraveled.
Mm.
Does this mean that it will fall apart altogether? No. This, even if they go into oh no, God, I love being old. Rafah, the town they're moving into now.
Rafah.
Yes, if they go into there now, that's going to be the end of the war. They're going to wipe it out. It could be more innocent lives lost. Sadly, it looks like that's what's going to happen. But it'll be over, for the most part. There'll be some mopping up to do. But there'll be reconciliation. I mean, I know you and I disagree on this point. My point is that this will be over and people will forget it. Because we have, as a culture, especially the United States, we have the memory of a goldfish. So, we won't care in 6 months once it's over. Let me ask you, Ted, taking over.
I guess I'm not disagreeing with you about the lack of memory. I think I'm disagreeing with you about the timing. I don't know that this will be, if like, let's just say right now in May, the entire, this war had ended like today, then like by November, I think, I'm not sure I disagree with your analysis at all. I just don't think that'll be the case. I think it will,
Well,
it will have, and either will not have ended, or it will be ending, or it will have just as ended. And then there's going to be a massive humanitarian crisis.
yes, yeah,
Tent
that's what's going
city
to
in the desert, people telling
Sinai.
their stories, weeping and crying on national television and on social media. So I think people are going to remember.
Yeah, but will it have that kind of impact on the election. I just don't see it if the timing goes the way I think it's going to go. Let me ask you real quick, Ted, because you may know the answer to this, and I don't understand it. See, here's been the problem for people like me who happen to be great supporters of Israel, is we're not being told what victory looks like for them. Netanyahu, for some reason, is not saying, we want to kill all of Hamas. Okay, it was sort of like the war on terror, which was the dumbest fucking slogan because it didn't mean anything. You couldn't quantify it. And in terms of military action, I've been very clear in my thoughts on this issue. If you're going to go and invade a country, if you're going to do what Israel's doing in Gaza, you better damn well tell me why you're doing it and what you hope the end result is, other than everybody dead. Because that
Right.
then that becomes something very different. Let me ask you to on the border crossing, they did this in the
Well, I
last
gotta
48
say,
hours.
before you ask that, I just want to react to what you
Yeah.
just said. So, I mean, here's the thing. I think that a lot of leaders these days, in recent years, have not wanted to express their war aims because they feel like they would be boxed in, and they want to be able to sort of declare victory whenever they see fit, and they feel like it doesn't give them enough flexibility. But I agree with you that if you want to maintain um, public support for your war, you have to express a war aim and be willing to accept the fact that you may not achieve it, but at least you
Yeah.
expressed it. And look, I'm going to take issue with you. I'm going to defend Netanyahu. He has expressed a war aim. It's just that nobody believes him because it's not feasible. He said that he wants the total destruction of Hamas.
Yeah,
Well,
but that's
but he hasn't. But what he leaves unspoken is how will he achieve that without killing the entire population of Gaza, or almost all of the population of Gaza? Because I don't think you could, because Hamas is a resistance organization where a lot of people, they're a school teacher during the day and they're in Hamas at night. So a phenomenon that I experienced when I was in Afghanistan, where I met a guy who was a Taliban fighter at night, and during the day he worked to build infrastructure for the government. And I was like, I go out, yep. So you go out at night and blow up the things that you built during the day. Mm-hmm. And he didn't see any contradiction there, because one was to put food on the table and as his cover, and the other was to, his where his political orientation was. And I think so. You can't really, kill Hamas without. So the whole point, though, is, but he has expressed a war aim. I just don't think anybody, including the Israelis, believe that it's possible.
and that's my point when I mentioned the war on terror, which was a bullshit. It didn't mean anything. I mean, yes, you can say that we're going to kill all the members of, of Al Qaeda. Okay, who are they? Well, they know who they are. Um, does this work? I mean, I think probably the focus on Al Qaeda probably did work. But there were other things that sprung up, and that was just as, ISIS being chief among them. That is a bigger danger than Al Qaeda is or was. Okay, let me real quick. A border crossing. Why did the Israelis feel this happened in the last 48 hours? Why did they feel they had to take that over?
Well, I think, look, obviously we're speculating here, but hey, that's our jobs. I think that what is going on here is basically exactly what I've thought all along. I mean, from the very beginning, when I saw that the Israeli plan was to push the population south toward the border crossing with Egypt, I always thought that the end game was to open that border and kick the people who were still alive out into the desert. And I think that's what this is about. It's securing the border. Bear in mind, if you've ever crossed this kind of international land crossing, I mean, it's no different than if you go to Canada from the United States. I mean, there's basically a no man's land in between the two countries, and then there's each side controls their side of each country controls their side of the border. Well, the Israelis clearly wanted to prepare and control the Rafah border crossing. Now, why would you need to do that? I guess you could say operationally, you want to make sure nothing comes in while you're conducting operations that could interfere with your operation, probably. But I think the main issue, the main goal here is to start preparing infrastructure like holding pens and like in a way that's going to be able to deal with a massive flow of over 1 million people as they forced them out into the Sinai desert at gunpoint.
Now, Egypt has ceded what, 2 miles
Well, they
into the
haven't
Sinai?
seeded, they have created sort of an internal buffer zone. So yeah, they've built a retaining wall that
Right. The
basically,
presumption is that that's what they expect, is the Palestinians to get to that wall and then stop.
right. And then at that point, they'll build the, NGOs and the UN and so on would presumably provide, supervise the construction of a massive tent city, and the people would live there indefinitely in the desert until someone figures out what to do with them. Obviously, the Israelis would never want them back. Israel's goal, I think, is and always has been, and before October 7th was to annex Gaza and completely and take it over. So I think that's what this is about.
Yeah, I don't see that, and I really do think that you're going to see a. I mean, I'm talking on my ass here. This is just maybe a faint hope, but I do think that it would behoove the Israelis to effectively create a Marshall Plan for Gaza, rebuild it. They're going to install a government that they like. Probably nobody else will. So I think you will see Palestinians back in Gaza, but it's going to be buildings, these beautiful buildings, and the problem with the buildings is that they are very well mic'd. So every
Well,
room.
I think so. Here's why I don't think that that's going to happen, Scott. First of all, I mean,
Okay.
there's a variety of reasons. First and foremost, Israel doesn't give a shit about the Palestinian people at all. They have always viewed them as people who were in the way, and they would have much preferred them not to have been there when they got there. And so, and they have no respect or care for them at all. They would be happy if they all fucking died. So I think that's the first thing. So why on earth would they spend trillions of dollars to do what you said? I mean, for international PR, they don't care about international PR. That's like not a concern for them. If it were, they'd be conducting themselves very differently in there and in the West Bank, right? I think they have no interest in it. Now, let's just say, for the sake of argument, that they did want to do it. I don't know why, but let's say they did. They don't have the money. I mean, it's like that's going to be trillions of dollars. I mean,
right.
they're
But I
not.
do think
It's a small country. Israel doesn't have that much money,
they're not poor. They're not a poor country, certainly, but
but
they
they don't
also
have that.
have, well, but they could approach the Saudis, they could approach the Jordanians, they could approach
None of
I'm
whom
trying to
will
think
agree
what.
to do this unless, see, I think if the Israelis did what you're saying, which I think is magical thinking. I think it's a fantasy. But let's just say they were going to do it. The Israelis would absolutely insist on maintaining complete military control over that area, right? They wouldn't allow it to be run by like a sovereign Palestinian state with its own military and all that, right? They would not.
Yeah, I think you're right there. I think you're right
And the
there.
Israeli government has been very clear about that for a long time, that they will not allow a really truly sovereign Palestine to ever emerge as in a two-party solution. So if they built it, it would be some kind of like, like a sort of a puppet state would be the best way
Yeah,
to describe it.
yeah, but
And
yeah,
so if they did that, then but the problem is the Saudis and the Emiratis have already said, and I think this is true, it's not a negotiating posture. They could not and would not contribute to any reconstruction for anything that looks like a Vichy kind of puppet state. It has to be a truly sovereign Palestinian state. Even if they don't give a shit about the Palestinians, their citizens wouldn't allow it. Public opinion in Saudi Arabia and the UAE and all those countries is just very clear, I think.
okay.
I mean,
I hope you're wrong. Obviously, I hope you're wrong, but I'm trying to be optimistic.
Yeah, I mean, I like being optimistic. I guess, I want to dig a little deeper. Like, what would be in it for the Israelis to do what you said?
PR, I mean, a huge PR coup. if they could actually pull it off, presuming that they could. I think the fact that, yeah, no standing army for the Palestinians. I mean, things like that mean that you don't have sovereignty. So
That's
it
right.
won't.
They would have to pay for it themselves in your scenario.
Yes. Yes. So that's where, I mean, that's my thinking, and that would be, the United Arab Emirates would be, I forgot about them, that they could also toss in a few bucks. I don't know. I just think that behooves. It's certainly better optics than Israel just moving in and turning it into, like you say, sandals Gaza.
I do think that's what I think that's the plan.
You've said that. I hope you're wrong. I'm not
But I
sure
mean,
that it is.
it's just that like everything that they're doing points to that. I mean, if in fact, even the war aims, if they were really just interested in getting rid of Hamas, then, I mean, here's the thing. There's other ways to look at this. There's sections of Israel that are directly adjacent to Gaza that are still in Israel. If they really were planning to rebuild everything after they destroyed Hamas and let everyone go back into the Gaza Strip, they could create that tent city in Israel. Like, it could be contained, it could be fenced off. They could open the border, let people in there, and then without having them enter the rest of Israel. There's no reason that has to be in Egypt, right? They can totally do it there. Why are they not doing it there? There's lots of desert there. They could do it. There's room. They're choosing not to do that. Also, they chose not to go after him. If they were really after Hamas, they should have gone after Hamas in Khan Yunis at the very beginning, because that's where their headquarters were. And instead, they kind of went in through the north, deliberately allowing Hamas to get away. I don't think getting Hamas was ever a high priority.
What do you mean deliberately letting? I mean, that doesn't make a lot of sense.
They knew that they were going to get away. I mean, it's like they're moving with the population.
Right. But by letting them go, how could that possibly benefit the Israelis, given their
they just don't care about Hamas. This isn't about Hamas. This is a land grab. That's what.
Okay, you've said that, and you and I disagree on that. I'm really just don't see.
Obviously, we'll know more as time.
We could be editorial. Yes, we could be editorial writers. Time will tell.
Exactly. Yeah, I guess. I mean, maybe we should bet something about it. We could bet this awesome new button that I got.
Oh no, what'd you get?
Yeah, I know, it's a cousin of one that you have, but I was very happy to find this. So here be Theodore Roosevelt in Fairbanks in 1904. That's a cousin of the one that you have of Williams Jennings Bryan from 1908.
Yes.
Obviously made by the same company. I like the sepia look. It's very cool.
Oh yeah, no, in Fairbanks, I mean, I don't know anything about that guy. And how I can say that off the top of my head. I can't tell you my neighbors' names. I can't tell you, I've just met you, can't tell you your name, but I can tell you the vice presidential nominee for the Republican Party in 1904.
Well, it's important to have priorities. Anyway, so
God. Okay, so
go ahead and take a break, and then when we come back, we will have come back.
Okay, we'll be back.
Hey there, I'm not going to Scott's laughing. I'm Ted Rall, coming to you from the left.
I'm Scott.
Go ahead, Scott.
Well, I'm Scott Stantis, coming to you from the right. This is the DMZ America podcast. Thank you for listening.
Thursday, May 9th, part 2, or duh.
Duh.
All right, so look, it is a testimony to just how crazy things are in the world of politics, that a former president of the United States is on trial in criminal court and faces possible jail time, and it's not really the biggest story. Right? Like,
I know, this is how weird things have gotten. Yeah, the Stormy Daniels, the hush money case, which I think, in my mind, I don't think there's a lot of there, although the prosecutor seems to be pretty disciplined and the defense seems to be pretty shitty so far. they've had Stormy Daniels on the stand, and she's been giving weird testimony and going into detail that nobody asked her about what
Well, the
it's like to have.
prosecutor asked her.
Well, but then she goes off on tangents. That's been the complaint. In fact, the judge has admonished her to please stay on topic. It's hard to believe that a porn star would be a damaged human being, but well, there you are.
Well, I thought she was very impressive. I didn't see her, obviously. We didn't, the proceedings were not televised, so it's impossible to see. But by all
No.
accounts, look, I've seen her interviewed. She's an extremely impressive woman. She's very charming, very funny, very sarcastic. I could really see her being very appealing to a New York jury, for real.
Mm.
And nobody's going to be like grossed out by what she does for a living. And it's important to note that she's not just a porn actor, she's also a director. She's directed over 150 films, more than
I'm sorry, I don't
Scorsese
know.
can say. And
yeah, let's compare those
hers are
two.
probably better than some of Scorsese's. And then there's
Where they're shorter.
certainly shorter, get to the point more quickly. And then there's and then she's also a major advocate for the adult actors, their health, their benefits. She's kind of a union head, basically. So she's cool. But anyway, this case isn't about whether Donald Trump fucked her or not. This is, in fact, for you to convict in this case, you don't even have to believe that she fucked him at all. This is about hush money, about paying her to just shut the fuck up about her story, whether true or not. And then specifically, not really about paying the hush money, because that's legal. You can totally pay hush money, but it's about how Trump personally ordered that this reimbursement to his lawyer, Michael Cohen at the time, be earmarked in internal documents inside the Trump organization. And the theory of the case is that this basically is a campaign finance violation because it wasn't earmarked as a campaign expense, because it should have been, because if the voters knew what he had done, it would have affected the outcome of the election, and he's aware of that. And so therefore it's a violation of campaign finance law. But even that would have been a misdemeanor. But under the theory of the case, in New York State, if you commit a crime toward the furtherance of another crime, that's a felony, thus eclipsing the need to respect the statute of limitations for an event that took place 8 years ago, which should have lapsed a year after just a year. Scott, there's a lot of leaps there. I don't think the DA is asking these 12 jurors to hold her hand, Letitia James, right? And say, no, sorry, his hand, Alvin Bragg.
Yeah.
Hold my hand, come with me, jump across this creek, jump across this brook, jump across this river with me, and then a few more, and then you'll get to the promised land. I don't think so. I don't think you're going to get 12 jurors to follow each one of these logical legal leaps. I think it's just like, it's too much to ask. I think this case is legally flawed. I mean, I'm not even going to talk about whether it should have been brought, but this same exact case, type of case, was brought against John Edwards in 2012 over his hush money payment paid in 2008, and it failed. It resulted in a deadlocked jury. The case was tossed. He walked. And Alvin Bragg's predecessors at the DOJ looked at it and against Trump, and they're like, we can't do it, we can't prosecute it. Bragg decided, fuck it, I'm doing it, and here we are. I don't know. I don't think I think Trump's going to walk.
I don't know.
Plus, he can always appeal. If he's convicted, he can always appeal, and he will.
Well, let's be clear. We're to this point, we have only heard the prosecutor's case, so that's
true.
That's all we're hearing.
There's been some cross-examination, but that you are.
Well, of course, but that's what we're hearing right now. So let's see what the defense puts forward. And you may be right. You may be after the prosecution rests, the defense says, okay, they got nothing. Can you ask the judge to dismiss it? I think Trump is hurting himself profoundly by not being able to keep his fat mouth shut. and going after the judge, going after the judicial system, going after, and going against the gag orders. I mean, um, it's just baffling to me, Ted. Here's the thing. I mean, I respect, I used to respect, let me put it that way, politicians and who raised us up, who were actually good at what they did. Here's a guy who fucked a porn star while his wife was recovering from giving birth to their child. And in MAGA Nation, this is okay. And MAGA Nation, none of this is all turns around to Trump being a victim. And it's just stunning to me. I mean, regardless of how this turns out, how this case turns out, this would have 20 years ago, this would have killed any presidential campaign. I mean, in its
That's true.
tracks,
That's true.
And instead, this is, well,
what's interesting about, I mean, I've done a lot of thinking and reading about this, and I kind of buy the argument that, for the the evangelicals, it's kind of like, why are they following this man, right? And it's all kind of comes down to, well, God works in mysterious ways. And it is true that, like, and I know my Bible, that a lot of, especially Old Testament Bible heroes, were assholes and scoundrels, right? So, like, David fucked Delilah. There's like all sorts of temptation that takes place. There's all sorts of heroes of, look at Abraham. He's like, don't worry, God. Yeah, I'll totally kill my son for you. What kind of dude is that? It's like totally like, so there's a lot of, so I think it's like, the reason that's not a problem is it doesn't go against brand. This has always been my theory, that, like, in life and in politics and in public life, you can get away with more if you've branded yourself accordingly. Look at me. As a cartoonist, I get away with shit in my cartoons that you wouldn't get away with. Like, for example, I had the word asshole in a cartoon that was out on our syndicate. We have the same syndicate sent out. You put the word asshole in a cartoon and see if the syndicate sends it out. I don't think they would, because
they wouldn't.
That's against the Stantisian brand. The Rall brand is, yeah, he's edgy. His subscribers know him. I know, I've had those discussions when I used to work as a syndicate executive. So it's about, like, what are the clients expecting? Trump's clients expect this man who's like freewheeling, wild, gluttonous, just completely a bon vivant, doesn't give a shit what anyone thinks. He's rude, crude, and socially unacceptable. And, like, if you put a porn star in front of that guy, there's no way he's not going to try to fuck her, right? I mean, it's like, that's who Donald Trump is. They know what he is, and they bought into it. And once you've bought into that, that's it.
Yeah, I mean, I see that, but it's still flummox me. I mean, I just don't. It's so far. I mean, I've talked about this before. I've talked about it on podcasts. I've talked about it in interviews. The old rules. I came up in politics. I worked in politics since I was literally 12 years old. None of those rules apply anymore. None of them. And Donald Trump has, he did what he set out to do, which is, tear down the castle and, drain the swamp. And I mean, you got to hand it to him for that. Politics will never be the same going forward, ever. So
absolutely.
I think in some ways that's good, in some ways that's bad. Should, the guy, so-and-so had an affair, does that, or she had an affair, should that preclude them from holding office? And I think the American people, are going to look at that and go, no, that does not preclude you from holding public office. That's dumb.
Also, but here's another question. When people like Donald Trump are, quote unquote, married, scare quotes here, are they married in the same sense as, like, a normal American? And you know exactly what I mean.
I know exactly what you mean. I think that I think you are, to a point, because all of his wives divorced him. He didn't divorce them, is my understanding.
True.
That they just had enough of that crap and just were like, this guy, he'll have sex with anything. And I think Stormy Daniels' description of their date was interesting and not surprising.
No, there's nothing in there that doesn't ring true. And apparently he like said bullshit in court only when she said he didn't call bullshit on the silk pajamas. He didn't call bullshit on her going to the loo and he's out in his satin underpants on the
Yeah.
bed, on the
Oh,
hotel bed. Didn't call bullshit on that. He called bullshit when she said that Trump said, "Oh, we don't sleep in the same bed, in the same bedroom anyway, Melania and I." Uh,
well, that's probably true. It's got to be true. And
he
that's
got
easy
angry
enough to,
about that.
that's very easy to find out is you just look at the records. The White House has those records, just ask. And most presidents and first ladies don't. Did you know that?
I did know
Very
that,
few.
and I guess the thing is, I always wonder, chicken and egg, right? Like, why is that? Is that because they don't have a good marriage, or someone snores, or is it because they, is it because the president of the United States might get that 3 a.m. phone call and he doesn't want to
Yeah.
wake up his wife every fucking time something comes up?
Yes, there was, I think all of the, it could be all of the above. Gerald Ford did not, Nixon didn't, Johnson didn't, Kennedy didn't. The first one I think since the Trumans was Carter, and Rosalind and Jimmy Carter
Yeah, they
shared a
clearly
bedroom.
they clearly seem lovey-dovey,
Yeah,
and
they like each
the
other.
Obamas too. They seem. I would
Yeah,
be surprised if they didn't sleep together.
but which, and the Nixons, and someone actually asked Richard Nixon in an interview. This was, I mean, it's
How
fascinating.
often do you cornhole Pat?
Yes, I'll do you
Well,
do you,
I'm very happy you asked.
they don't call me Dick for nothing. No, I mean, they asked him, he said, well, I have, because, and he mentioned the 3 o'clock phone calls, the fact that he goes to bed super late and gets up super early.
Yeah,
All
doesn't
that
want to
stuff
bother his wife. Yeah,
yeah, that kind of makes sense. But by turns, I don't know, Ted. I mean, I've been married for 5,000 years. I kind of would, if I was somehow made president of the United States, I definitely want, to go to bed with and sleep with my wife.
I would think that it would be a comfort to you, especially in a
Yeah, exactly.
job.
Yeah, especially when, yeah, everybody,
It would be something you'd probably be looking forward to more than ever.
yeah, just cuddling and just, yeah, exactly. So it's weird to me when I hear that they don't.
I
It
mean,
wouldn't surprise me.
in Biden's case, he certainly couldn't cuddle up with Commander, or he might come out of it minus a body part.
Yeah, I know he'd lose like a face. Yeah, I don't know if Jill, but I mean, it's interesting how many presidents did not sleep with their wives, and part of it is because they didn't want to disturb them, but the other part is, yeah, they were busy doing other stuff. If you
Right.
know what I mean.
Yeah, and with
Um,
Bill Clinton, we know that he was up, for example, in the Starr report, came out that he was like talking on the phone to Lewinsky at 2 o'clock in the morning. He's just
oh
like
no,
a teenager, like,
well, he was actually talking
oh my
to
God.
a congressman from here in Alabama while he was getting a blowjob from Monica,
Well,
which is,
I always admire a man who can multitask.
yeah, you never believe, Congressman, you never guess what I'm doing.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
remember
it's
someone
just
figured out that like he and Dick Morris was having his toes sucked at the same
by
time.
a prostitute. I mean, who the hell? I mean, just give her an extra $20. She'll be impressed with you. You don't have to. And the fact that Clinton played along,
Yeah, 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 yeah.
it's like, oh my God, what is wrong with these guys? I mean, men are awful. Men are just awful. I mean, it really just comes down to that. So
That's
you
true.
and I think there is one juror. I was talking with a fellow cartoonist. They brought up this one juror in his questionnaire, and he sounds very much like a MAGA Nation guy. So I think there's going to be, at the very best, there's going to be a hung jury on this. But I can see right
I
now.
think a good, seriously Biden voting liberal Democrat could come out of this and vote no.
Okay, well, we're obviously we have to see the defense arguments. We haven't seen them yet, and we haven't
No,
heard
we
them yet.
haven't. But
Rather,
of course, it's not their job to exonerate Trump. Let's something we forget in this country a lot. It's a prosecutor's job to prove their case. So far, their case hasn't been proven. It still could. But even if you buy every single step of it, you buy their entire argument, the legal construct is very shaky. Now, interestingly, there's two, count them, two attorneys on this jury.
Oh, really? I didn't know that.
Isn't that amazing? Two. I mean, it's like, I mean, usually attorneys never make it onto a jury. Journalists don't
Wow.
usually make it onto a jury.
Editorial cartoonist. I've gotten out of
Never.
jury duty every single time by
Yeah.
saying that I'm an editorial cartoonist. And they go, oh, okay. You know,
Now they wouldn't know what that is, so you'd be honest.
no. Oh, well, thank God. Damn it. Yeah, it was great. It was a great get out of jury duty card. So okay, I'm going to say hung jury at the best. Let's assume for a moment there's even if there's a conviction, it's going to be a fine. I mean, so anyone who thinks that they're going to have,
it's his first offense.
And anyone who thinks they're going to get the joyful view, image of the former president of the United States in prison, they're not going to see it on this one. It's just not going to happen. I thought the Georgia case was the strongest, but apparently,
well, it was
problems
the most perilous. I don't know if it was the strongest.
Oh, I thought it was the strongest, but well, I think the
January 6th is the best case. The Jackson.
Well, yeah.
Case.
Well, I think the Georgia case and I think also the Arizona case now, which are very similar, is really, those are the ones that are most damning, and that actually has prison time attached to it. This, even if he's convicted, let's assume for a moment that that it happens and he gets convicted, the judge in all likelihood will say, $50,000 fine.
Yeah,
that's it.
And frankly, that's fair.
Yes. Yeah, that's what it should be.
It's not a major offense. I mean, like, if we stipulate that he did exactly what they say and that it was illegal, it's like, okay, so it's a fine. I mean, you don't throw someone in jail over something like this, although people have, but they shouldn't. So
now let me ask you about the gag order and the fact that, I mean, Trump is perilously close. He is perilously close to being thrown in jail. And when they throw you in jail for that, sometimes it's like half a day. A lot of times it's 24 hours, then let you go. But I mean, the president of the United States, do you think that there's a threat that that this judge would throw him in jail for
well, there's clearly a threat because the judge has, threatened him.
Okay. All right. So
the judge has
could
said,
this
"Pick
happen?
this shit up, and next time I'm sending you to jail."
Okay. So could this happen? And if it happens, what happens? I mean,
well, apparently at that point, he goes either to the Tombs or Rikers Island. So Rikers Island is just what it sounds like. It's a island prison. It's a city jail that's already been ordered to be, it's in such dismal condition that it's been ordered to be closed within 2 years. They don't really know what they're going to do to replace it. That's New York City is that kind of city right now. And then there's the Tombs, which is the old 19th century prison in Chinatown in the old Five Points area. Sort of the gang, it dates back to the gangs of New York period.
Oh my God.
And it's bleak as shit. I mean, you'd rather go to Rikers. That's how bad it is. But
apparently the Secret Service already has contingency plans for if he goes to prison.
They think they've already liaised with their counterparts at Rikers, and they have I guess he would be like in a special unit at Rikers, cooling his heels. I don't think that's something he would want. I think he would find it very upsetting psychologically. I mean, it's one thing to scowl at like the booking photo at the Fulton County courthouse at the sheriff's office. It's another thing to be like even 24 hours in the who scowl. It's no fun. He's not going to want to do it. Look, I don't think he will.
Have you ever been in jail?
I have.
For what? May I ask?
For being too pretty.
Oh, well, I can see that. I can absolutely see
that. Yeah. No, I'll tell you. So, well, in the United States, I've been in jail quite a few times overseas, but those were always like adventure travel, like we're going to throw you in jail unless you pay us money. So it was like shakedown. It wasn't like I had done anything wrong. But here in the U.S., I was driving in college. I was on a road trip with a friend. We were pulled over. The cop decided to search the car. Then he found that my friend was carrying weed and fireworks in his stuff.
Oh God.
And
Oh
so we
God.
got arrested in Massachusetts. They dragged us in the middle of the night. And we spent maybe about 5-6 hours in the lockup. And then we were released on our own recognizance. We had to go back to trial a few months later. And actually, because they had put the cuffs on so tight that it left a scar on my wrist, my defense lawyer, who was buds with the judge, had us show our hands to the judge. The judge is like, I don't know, he made us pay some kind of fine to the Widows and Orphans Fund with and said like our records would be wiped after 6 months if we kept our noses clean, and that was it.
Okay, that's not so bad. I've been in twice, and that, yeah, being in prison sucks.
What were you in prison for? Now that I've told my
Oh,
sad story of woe.
mine's just as pathetic
You
as
mean jail,
yours.
not prison, right?
Yeah, jail. I was picked up by the Torrance police. I had a outstanding warrant for I forgot to pay a traffic ticket.
Oops.
So yeah, they picked me up. They handcuffed me, put me in the back of the car, took me to the prison, to Torrance prison,
Oh,
strip
you're
searched
forgetting.
me.
That something like that happened to me too in the Hamptons. But you go ahead.
Well, they strip searched me,
Outstanding
which they
warrant for I
and they
had
and
paid a
actually
speeding ticket, but they didn't think I had.
Torrance PD later got sued by a woman who they strip searched for very, very similar circumstances. And there's no reason. I mean, well, I'm not carrying a shiv up my ass because
They strip
they're
searched
just
you?
driving around. Oh yeah. Yeah. And they spread them and the whole thing. And in front of a female officer, by the way,
Wow.
and took my glasses away. Now I'm legally blind without my glasses. I literally cannot see. And that was terrifying, to be in a holding cell and not being able to see.
Yeah, they
Then
take if you have medicine or if you have like an asthma inhaler, they take it away from you.
Yeah, they do. So
They just don't
then,
give a shit about your life at all. They're happy if you die.
well, to that point, fast forward to the court date in downtown Los Angeles. Um, and all of the Spanish speakers in front of me are going, no comprende. He goes, $5, fine, clunk. Okay, next. I come in front of him. He says, what's your plea? I say, no contest. He goes, okay, $350 fine to be paid now. I go, I don't, what? And he said, well, you're going to be, I go, what does that mean? Obviously I don't have it on me. This is back in the late 70s.
Oh God.
Yeah, no, I had both times.
And nobody has cash at all now.
Nobody. I mean, I had to call my wife, and she worked at her father's pharmacy twice to come bail me out of jail. And so this time she did. Now I'm wearing a suit and tie because I want to look like respectable, like this. So they throw me into a holding cell in LA County, which is everything you think it is and more. And so here's this white guy in a suit in this holding cell.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Did you have your glasses that time at least?
They let me keep my glasses, but they took my tie and they took my shoes because they had shoelaces.
Right.
So Janine came and bailed me out. And we
Well,
finally got
I gotta ask, how were your fellow cellies? Were they nice?
We had some guys who were in there, one for attempted murder and two for assault. There's another guy in there who was there for, it was his 5th DUI. He and I got along really well. In fact, I invited him to my wedding. Because he was getting married. No, he didn't. I don't think he got out because he's getting married about the same time I was. That's a good excuse,
but not an excuse not to send a gift though.
Just saying. No, I didn't get any flatware, nothing, son of a bitch. But he, well,
he's probably busy murdering.
Yes.
Or drinking or whatever.
It really was. I mean, it was funny because I got out. I said, oh, I met this nice guy. I invited him to the wedding. He's just staring at me like,
like, I'm so lucky. I know how to choose him.
Yeah. This is my guy. I mean, first of all, getting engaged, I still can't get over her parents like pretending to be happy. I'm an unemployed cartoonist. We're engaged.
And jailbird.
Well, now I'm a jailbird. So those are my experiences. And I can tell you just the few hours. I was in LA County for about 3 hours.
Well, you didn't tell me how were your cellies? Were they nice or were they...
I just told you. Well, I told you I invited one of them.
Were any of them assholes? Did anyone give you a hard time?
Yeah, there was a couple of guys who were clearly looking at me and they, but the holding cell there at least was very open and the guards were right there. So they
So
if they
nothing was
were
gonna
not
happen.
right there, if I had spent the night,
But
something
maybe
would, yeah,
nothing would have happened.
I'm pretty confident something would have happened. I really am. It
Oh,
was,
now I'm remembering another story. Yeah, I got maybe I've been in jail more times than I care to remember. I was arrested for
yeah.
violating New York's anti-poster ordinance. And
Oh, right. You used to post your cartoons, which I think is a brilliant guerrilla way to go about this
well,
job now.
it helped me launch my career. And yeah, and I was in a holding cell like that at the Tombs. Now,
And how long were you there? And did you make
I was there
friends?
for 3 nights on a
Three nights?
holiday weekend. So you're right. In New York City, court rulings have interpreted that your right to a speedy trial means you must be indicted in less than 24 hours. But that doesn't apply to holiday weekends. Apparently, the Constitution goes on hiatus during long weekends. So it was like 4th of July. And to add to the irony, so I was celebrating my freedom, eating bologna sandwiches. Only one a day were supplied by the jail. So I was hungry, and it was bad. The jail was disgusting. It was hot as hell. No air conditioning. New York in July in a 19th century
Oh,
holding
ooh.
cell. That said, and it was definitely like a colorful, no pun intended, collection of rapscallions, ranging from white collar to blue collar and everything in between. But it was definitely, I gotta say, everyone was nice. Including like the armed robber. Everyone was cool. It was like,
Well,
I'm pretty good at getting along with people in a situation like
well,
that.
me too. And the worst, the only assholes, the only guys who are outwardly assholey were the guards.
Oh yeah, they're dicks.
I mean, that's the LAPD, so or I think I believe
Oh
they are,
God.
but
Or yeah, isn't that shit run by the sheriff's office department out there
I
in the
think it may be, yeah, and which is
with their
just
yellow
as which is
shirts, their
those are
yellow
guys
vest shirts?
who are too fucking stupid to become LA police officers. So yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, so that's yeah. So if you're listening to the DMZ America podcast by two ex-cons, Ted
Yep.
Ted Bugsy Rall and Scott, three balls Stantis.
That's how we're going to call it. Yeah. By the way, I suppose we should not let this segment go without noting that the internet has now dubbed Donald Trump Raw Dog Don for his he doesn't favor using condoms, at least according to
Oh,
Stormy Daniels. Yeah.
okay. Well, there's that.
You're like, you're not gonna go. You're not
I don't know what to do
that.
with that. I mean, I just like, again, that's very much on brand, although I'm just stunned there's not Trump condoms.
Oh, that's a good idea. Like bright red.
Or just has a red stripe down at like the tie.
Or yeah, it just says MAGA on it. That'd be awesome.
God.
Well, I guess the Trump con. You can just imagine like they pitched that to him. He's like, no, that's totally against brand. Like, no.
No, it's no. Apparently, au contraire, mon frere. Okay, on that note, let's go. Let's
Oh my
stop this
God.
segment and go on to the next one.
Devolving. Okay. Keep it right
We'll be
here. I
back.
promise it'll be less scrungy. That's something. All right.
We'll be
Bye.
back.
Stay here.
Well, no.
Yo, you are listening to the DMZ America podcast for Thursday, May 9th, Victory in Europe Day in the former Soviet Union 2024. And I'm coming to you from the left. I'm editorial cartoonist Ted Rall.
And I'm editorial cartoonist Scott Stantis coming to you from the right. And happy VE Day. That was, I keep trying to project myself back into that. I love history, and part of it is trying to project yourself into what it must have felt like that day, especially if you had a loved one in either theater of operation, the Pacific or the Atlantic. That must have been amazing.
I may see them again. Yeah.
Yeah.
They may come home.
Well, you have that gorgeous poster in your apartment that went up when the liberation of Paris, that I think is gorgeous. I know you spent a fortune fixing it up, and
True.
it's just a figure of victory lifting up and rising from a tomb. And it
Yeah.
just says liberation in French, of course. And it's just that sense of elation that the slaughter was over. If I had someone in the Pacific, I would have just been a little pissed, but still, because that was,
That was
if,
ongoing. Yeah.
and if you read the experiences of those men and some of the women who were there, or the women who were there rather, it was just hell on earth. Speaking of hell on earth, let's talk about the economy.
Indeed, let's talk about it. Well, so here I pulled up some key economic statistics. So
Right.
the most recent jobs numbers show that the U.S. economy job creation index, according to the Department of Labor Statistics and the Bureau of Labor Statistics, has exceeded expectations. 300,000 jobs added.
Oh, that's old. That's an old report because the latest one that
That's
just came out, Ted. Yeah, that's an old one. The one that just came out
that's
recently was like
April. Yeah.
120, 130,000. It
That's
was,
anemic. That's anemic, but still,
yeah,
Biden has created 15.2 million jobs. Of course, a lot of those are just restoring jobs that had been lost during the pandemic. So he doesn't deserve credit for all of those. The Federal Reserve Bank has decided not to cut interest rates. They had foreshadowed last year that they were going to cut it by 2 percentage points
yeah,
over the course of 8 times, so a quarter point per quarter for 2 years. That didn't happen. It's now been, I think they've now missed at least 2 of those cuts.
yes,
As a result, the housing market, I would say, is pretty much close to frozen. Very little inventory, very little stock moving. Prices are sky high, but so are interest
they are.
rates. So nothing's moving, and people, interestingly, that's a political indicator that people don't talk much about. But Americans are not only very upset about the state of the housing market, whether they're looking to buy or sell, or they have loved ones who do, but they care a lot about it. So it's like it's an important issue, and they have strong opinions about it. Inflation is definitely not that high, at least according to official levels. And I guess if you're the Fed, but they still think it's a little higher than they would like it. It's in the
They
3.
wanted at 2%. It was 3.1% at the beginning of the year. It went up to 3.6, and the last reports are 3.8%, which still seems to me
It's a
coming
bit
out of
high.
it's still, but you're coming out of, and I don't know that is relevant because like we've talked about me and Janine going out for cups of coffee, and it's $12 now.
Yeah,
Um, the jobs, the anemic the GDP has grown at a very anemic 1.6% this last quarter.
yeah.
That's
You like to see in the high 2s, or at least, or 3 ideally.
Yeah, you want 3 or 4 to be robust.
Mhm.
The fact that the Federal Reserve Board has not cut interest rates now at the mortgage rate is what's a little over 7%,
Mhm.
which doesn't seem exorbitant to me because I grew up and came out of
In the
age with
70s.
Janine in the 70s and 80s, where my first house I bought at 10% interest rate, and we bought a point to get it down to 10%, and we thought we were doing okay.
Yeah, I mean,
Um,
that is an interesting. I wonder if psychologically the people who are still willing to participate in the market are older folks who do remember how bad it can be, and they have that historical memory, and they're like, yeah, I can buy, I'll do 7.8. I can do that.
Seven's not bad. Seven is not, I mean, it just isn't that bad. I mean,
It's
it
not
frankly
that bad.
seems reasonable. And what it has done is savings accounts now pay an actual return. It's not a lot.
Right,
I think it's 4%, 5%,
right.
somewhere in that neighborhood
Yeah,
if
when
you
I
have a
was a
savings
kid,
account.
my passbook savings account paid 6.
Yeah. And so
So
there's a net positive there. But let's put all of that together. It's not good. If the Fed got off its ass and actually like started to lower interest rates, you'd see the economy start to take off. And I think overtake the inflationary pressures that are on the economy. I think on the housing side, and that means rentals and purchasing real property, is I know for a fact that the rental side is being manipulated there's a company out of Dallas. I happen to cartoon for the Dallas Morning News. You've never heard of it, and in fact, I can't remember the name of it. They have a massive campus in just outside of the downtown area of Dallas, and they established what rents are. It's software that every landlord of any kind virtually uses in the country. They put in the algorithm, and so that's why rents here, Ted, a 2-bedroom apartment in Birmingham, Alabama, is
Mhm.
not a lot cheaper than a 2-bedroom apartment in Chicago, Illinois. It's
Look, that's it.
insanity.
It is insane, and I think that look, that's part of what's keeping prices. I guess I would say artificially high. Let's just say algorithmically high, and then also on the buy side, there's billions and billions of dollars being invested into private single-family homes by these giant hedge funds and private equity firms that are buying them as an investment and then leveraging them in order to either flip them or rent them. They're turning massive areas that used to be, particularly in minority areas and working class areas that used to be a place for starter homes and working class families to start to get into home ownership. And instead, they've basically transformed them into oceans of rentals. So
Yes.
so that means there's less stock out there by definition, and
Right.
it's noticeable. It's not like, a negligible 0.04% of the stock. It's significant, and it's having a huge impact on people. So I guess here's my overall summary of the economy, right? Basically, it's pretty easy to find a job. Unemployment is low,
Yes. Yeah.
um, and there's a labor shortage. Most people at this point in the last few months, people's wages have been increasing faster than inflation. Those two metrics are huge. And
Yes.
if you're Biden, those are the places you look at, like you point to that. Now, prices are still high from having increased in the first couple of years of this administration. They're not going to ever go back down. That's that. That's a problem. It's a huge problem for the administration. People are still upset about it. The housing market's fucked up, and people care about it, whether they should or not. Um, I don't think you can talk people into feeling better about the economy. All you can do is make them think that you feel their pain.
Yes.
And
Yes.
maybe do like one of those lame things that like Bush. And remember how Bush, like right before his reelection, sent everyone a check for $300. That kind of lame shit. You can do that. Um,
Well, you can tell, but you can be Bill Clinton and say, "I feel your pain." You can do this, and that's what you need to be hearing from Biden. Biden doesn't have the bully pulpit because he doesn't have the energy to execute it in a way
I don't
that
think
would
he
be
cares about
meaningful.
people. I mean, remember
Oh,
the
I don't
big,
know. He
the
cares
big
about getting reelected.
true, but the big thing that he's been, the big sell on him was always he's a decent, sympathetic,
Horseshit.
compassionate man. And there's
Horseshit.
no evidence of that at all. There's about as much evidence of that as there is of anti-Semitism at the anti-Zionist protests on American college campuses. There's no evidence whatsoever that Biden is a nice guy. I mean, I was just thinking about this today. It occurred to me, speaking of the protest, he gave that talk the other day about like you can protest, but you can't do this and that. I'm leaving out the context of all that. He couldn't even say something nice about the protesters. Like, it's nice to see young people involved in the system, full of energy, participating, and as long as they're doing it peacefully, God bless them. He couldn't even say that. He was just like, well, you have the right to protest, but if you do anything out of line, we're coming down on you like a ton of bricks, you fucks. It was like,
Well,
he's
that
a
was
mean guy. He's a mean
well,
dude.
that's where it's coming from. And you talked about housing. Now, here's the thing. You talked about our age, men of a certain age. I own a house here in Birmingham, and it's too big. I had 2 sons, so it's big enough when all 4 of us lived here with a dog and all that stuff. And it's too big for Janine and I now. Just we're obviously empty nesters. It's we have a large backyard that and all that takes care of. It's a blessing. Don't get me wrong, and I'm lucky to have it. But I would love to if there was some way to downsize. But the thing is, if we sold this house, we'd probably pay something comparable for something half the size, And so why would you do that?
Well, wait, I don't understand why that would be true, right? I mean, like, if so, the market is X, you sell at X, and your house is bigger than
But
the house you'd move into. Why would, in the same market, why wouldn't your new house be
because
smaller
housing,
or
that's
cheaper?
not, that's where it comes, and my conspiracy theory du jour, Ted, is the the conspiracy to keep housing prices high, that any houses are, all houses are kind of at this level now, that before, let's say, Californians moving to Nevada, they'd sell their houses for close to $1 million, and they could move to Nevada and buy
Sure,
something outside of Las Vegas for 250,000 or
sure,
300,000. Well, that's not the case anymore. Now that's a $500,000 house. So,
sure.
yeah, you could still make some money, but for our purposes, we wouldn't. It would be
But you'd still be
the
in Birmingham, you'd still be in the same, you'd still be in the same
right,
area, right? So,
right. But a smaller home or like a condo, the prices are roughly the same price as the house we are currently
I
in.
have noticed a certain flattening, right? Like,
Yes, yes, exactly. And
it's
that's why
it's
I
very
think there's a
strange where, like,
conspiracy.
the difference between, say, a a one bedroom, sorry, a two bedroom like cottage, a three bedroom standard, three bedroom, two, 1.5 bath house, and a four bedroom or five bedroom house is not as big as it used to be, right? I mean,
Yeah,
it used to be like within in you to get that big reach, like here in New York, it's the way things have played out. I mean, it's condos and co-ops. Um, Studios are a dime a dozen. You can get one for like nothing. One bedrooms are pretty affordable. The jump from a one bedroom to a two bedroom is massive. It's like, and then from a two bedroom to three bedroom is massive. And you could just forget finding a three bedroom. There's no true three bedrooms, as they call them, and forget four bedrooms. They don't even exist. Like, money's not an issue. If you have $10 million, you can't get one. Doesn't matter. It's like they don't exist. But like but in the overall out in the hinterlands house market, it does seem like, instead of this big range like this, it's sort of like,
yeah,
everything's
very much a
frozen.
flattening. Yeah, very much a flattening, and that leads me to think that there's collusion similar to what's going on in the rental market. That there is this company
It
that,
could simply be a function of high interest rates, though, and basically suppressed demand.
well, there's huge demand that you mentioned that the inventory is way down.
Yeah, but
That's
there's no
one of the reasons.
there's pent up demand, but there's no actual demand. There's not people who are actually like, I'm currently prepared to make an offer, because everyone's in wait and see mode. Everyone's thinking interest rates will go down. This combination of high interest rates and high housing prices doesn't work. You can't
No,
have
it
both.
can't. This shall not stand. It really um and I have to wonder if the prices will go back down. People are still buying houses, albeit at a much slower rate, but they're still buying them. And I I have to wonder, going forward, how, used I mean, and when I say used to be, this isn't like me talking about when I was, way back in the 60s. I'm talking about within the last 15 years, the rule of thumb was 20 to 25% of your monthly income should go towards your housing.
Mhm.
And that could be mortgage, it could be rent, but that was the rule of thumb. Ted, today the average is 60% of
Yeah,
your income is going towards housing. Now that's
which means, by the way, you
insane.
won't qualify for a
No.
place that you like here in New York City. No landlord will rent you an apartment unless you make 40 times your the rent annually. So in other
Are you
words,
serious? 40?
so let's say you make so let's just say you want to rent a place that's 3,000 a month. You have to earn $120,000 a year. The irony is, no one who makes $120,000 a year wants a shitty $3,000 a month apartment. If you want a $4,000 apartment, which is pretty much like a generic modest apartment in New York, that you need 160,000. But nobody makes that much who would like move it. So it's just like it's completely fucked up in a weird way. The landlords are doing the right thing by trying to make sure that they only get people who qualify to move into these places. But the rent, but like the guy who died said, the rent is too damn high. Nobody can afford this shit. It's totally insane.
It is. Well, let's put a bow on this and walk it back towards the presidential election. We are on a precipice now. The economy is on this very delicate balance right now. There are some good news, but there's some very bad news and some deeply disturbing news. And if it doesn't turn around fairly quickly, I think that, when Clinton in 92 said it's the economy's stupid, he wasn't wrong. That people are going to go and vote for Trump because this economy, the inflation rate continues to go up, the housing costs continue to be sky high, the economic growth continues to be anemic, that the job market stalls and could go backwards. You and I both know that that's a real possibility.
True.
And that all of that leads back to Joe Biden. And you can do the George H.W. Bush 1992. Everything's fine. Everything's jiffy. Everything's just great. And it wasn't and Ted, you've touched on what attitudinal side of all of this, which is maybe the statistics do say that things are getting better, but people just don't feel that it is, because I keep going back to the cup of coffee for the $14 for 2 cups of 2 drinks.
You're really traumatized by that cup of coffee.
Well, it's just shocking to me. I mean, it was always Starbucks was always shockingly overpriced, but now it's like, what the fuck? So we stopped going. It's, because my wife, who is Croatian, as you know, Ted, they're a thrifty people.
That's what they say.
So, but she's not wrong. It's become more and more of a rare treat than it is anything else. My point is that we go and then our Starbucks happens to be in the same parking lot as our grocery store. So we go and get a couple of bags of groceries, and we're down $120. Well, that's what people that's what people take away from this. Gas here is still over $3 a gallon, which is a lot for us.
Sure.
I'm sure it's crazy where you are, crazier.
Yeah, it's more like 4.5.
Okay. So that's still a lot. People see that. That's how they're living. And they're going to look at Joe Biden and say, this guy, is he really helping me? Has he really made my life better in the last 4 years? And the one way to tell is, yeah, I can buy a cup of coffee for $2, or I can get gas for $1.90 a gallon. That's what they're going to base this on, not on, well, the GDP came in at 2.6%, which is just shy of robust.
Yeah.
I don't give a fuck. I care that it cost me a fortune to fill up my car.
Right.
But then I'm a stupid American, and I drive a truck that's the size of a house. I don't, by the way. I drive a hybrid. But you see these I can see where driving. Is it just me, or our trucks really are like ridiculously big now?
Oh no, it's not just you. I mean, think about like this. I think there's probably no truck more popular than the Ford F-150 at this point, right? I mean, you see them everywhere. Yeah. And they're giant. I mean, it's like, I would be worried about clambering out of one. If I fell, I might be falling hundreds of feet to my death to the parking lot. I mean,
takes all the fun out of driving drunk.
and they're very, very, by the way, someone did a study here in New York. They have there's been some very laudable initiatives trying to reduce it's called Vision Zero, which is a bad name, but they're trying to reduce deaths of pedestrians and bicyclists. Well over 85% of all pedestrian deaths in New York City are caused by SUVs. SUVs are just you instead of rolling over the hood, you get smacked right in the torso, and you go under the car, and you're killified. I don't know. I think look, if we care about climate change, SUVs and these oversized pickup trucks, they should just be prohibited. I mean, I can't believe they're allowed.
Well, I think they make sense in certain contexts, but I'm sorry, if I'm like an accountant and I'm driving like the 250, the Megalopolis 250, I mean, why? You don't fucking need that. I mean, I can see my son works in ironwork, and he does move things. He has a Tacoma. That makes sense for his business.
Sure.
To have that.
Yeah, you live in Colorado, and you need to fucking climb a mountain. Sure, I get it.
Yeah, and you need to bring the ram carcasses back down.
Right. Sure.
I don't know that. I don't know if they do that. Do they do that?
No.
Let's say they do.
We'll say they do.
So, all of this being said, Ted, thanks for this is a pretty good podcast, I think. Where can we see all things Ted Rallian?
You can go to rall.com, RALL.com, where I am pleased to say that on Monday, you will be able to order my brand new old book. It's a
Woo!
2024 revised, which is a graphic novel that I put out in 2000, and it was looking ahead at what the year 2024 would look like. And so basically you have a chance to revisit to see what I got right and what I got wrong. And if you never bought it, this would be the edition to buy, because this one's in full color. It's got annotations. It's new and expanded and much prettier. So
if you're watching the video, you can see me straining my neck. I'm looking at the Ted Rall shelf. I'm pretty sure I have that one. So
yep, I will.
I'm gonna have to reread it.
Yeah, but read it in color. It's different in color. Actually, it is different in color. It is easier to read for a variety of reasons. But anyway, you can also go to whowhatwhy.org. You can listen to The Final Countdown, my show with Angie Wong, which Scott is on quite frequently, including today. That's The Final Countdown on Radio Sputnik, Monday through Friday, 10 a.m. to 12 noon. And you can listen to that on X Spaces or on Rumble. And you go to gocomics.com/Ted Rall. You can go to Center Clip, which is an app with 30-second to 5-minute mini podcasts, which Scott and I are both on. Scott, where can we find all Stantisian stuff?
Well, not just Center Clip, but also the DMZ America podcast. Oh, wait, we're doing it right now.
That's true.
Oh, but go to gocomics.com/Scott Stantis. You can see my editorial cartoons. Go to gocomics.com/Prickly City to see my comic strip, my political comic strip. And you can also go to, I was going to say Chicago Tribune. I don't know that the gallery is up yet. It's been a nightmare trying to get them to do anything. But you can go to Dallas News and see the work I do for them at the Dallas Morning News. And there you go. It's all there in a neat little package.
Which is just the way we
Ted?
like it. All right.
Yes.
As always, it's thank you very much for listening to us here. We really appreciate you. Make sure to share it. Pass it around. Otherwise, no one will know about it. And then we might get bored and stop doing it. Probably not, but you never know. Anyway, so
no, we like doing it, but
3 years.
No, this is this I'm trying to think. This is episode 146, right?
Yeah, so that would be almost 3 years.
Wow. Wow.
Arithmetically.
Yeah. So you can go back and you can go and listen to old ones too. We actually, what's funny is we were driving cross country real quick, Ted, and I've had my phone plugged in. So it happened. I don't know why, but random segments of our podcast pop up. And so I listened to them. We got a lot of stuff right. I mean, it's really kind of cool. I mean, that's nice.
The stuff we fucked up and got wrong.
Oh no, we did that too. But we actually got a hell of a lot more right than we got wrong. It's really kind of shocking.
I don't think it's that shocking. It's amazing how the mainstream stuff people get so much wrong, though. People who are, there are like columnists who, make literally millions of dollars a year who are always wrong. I'm not going to name names, Thomas Friedman, but it's kind of amazing.
It is amazing. He still sells books. I mean, it's astounding. And so, well, there you go.
All right. Well,
so,
okay. So
thanks, Ted.
Check you out. Bye.